Welcome to Art Talk with April. I'm April Harris. I'm the artist of Inked April, located in Birmingham, Alabama. And this podcast is going to be about all things art. We'll talk about books, invite some artists to interviews, and much, much more. Let's get started. So welcome to Art Talk with April. Today we have the wonderfully talented Pam Singh. She is a mixed media artist. And thank you so much, Pam, for talking to me here.
Thank you so much for actually inviting me to talk to you. This is a wonderful experience. This is actually something that I have wanted to do for the longest time. So this is fun.
Well, where are you located at?
So I'm based in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I have actually traveled quite a bit. We moved from Kentucky last year to Charlotte, North Carolina. So yeah, I'm pretty new to this area, but I love it here.
Awesome. How did you start out in art? Were you interested in doing this as a child? Did you go to school? Where did your journey begin?
So it's a very interesting journey, actually. So as a kid, I have always been, fascinated with art and creating things. And anything that had to do with creativity was like my thing. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is for me and I'm going to do it, that kind of thing. Yeah. But then growing up, painting was definitely something that I was the most attracted to. I have my dad's older brother, who is a commercial artist, and his home was like an art museum to me because he used to be a painter. He used to paint all these magnificent paintings, and I used to just love kind of, visiting him, and that kind of, really inspired me, and I was like, you know what? This is something that I really want to try my hands on. And that's how I think I was like 5-6 years old when I actually first started painting. And he was the one who kind of, showed me the direction and kind of always encouraged me and was like, hey, you know what? Maybe you could do it like this. And I would always look up to him for suggestions, inspirations. So every time he visited our family, it was like a boost of my art energy. And because I would show him what all I had done, and he would kind of, be my guiding force. So, so that's how I started. But I am completely self-taught. Professionally, I'm a fashion designer. So I have been a designer for over 15 years now. And I started even before my designing career, even before I actually went to design school. So I started at the very early age of 15. And since then, I've kind of, gone to my design school. I've completed my degree in designing and fashion business management. And then art was like, I had not painted after my school for about 12 years.
Wow.
I had not touched canvas. But then in 2019, I was more like, early to mid 2019, I kind of drawn a little bit of inspiration from things around me. And I didn't want it to get started with painting. But what happened was really funny because there was this day when I was cleaning my garage. I had like a box of art supplies that I had stowed away for many, many years. That was just like, thrown in some part of that garage. And I was like, I was trying to scramble through stuff and take out what I didn't want for the yard sale and doing all that kind of things. And then I found this box and I was like, oh, I haven't painted for so long. So I literally kind of, stopped doing what I was doing. I was like, I had that urge that I had to do it like now.
Oh, wow.
So I just stopped what I was doing. And then I just started working on my painting. And lucky enough, I was like, one of my neighbor friends who I had posted it on Facebook, on my personal page. And one of my neighbor friends, they're like, hey, you know what? I really like it. Can I get that from you? What?
Oh.
Okay. I didn't even know, like what to price the art, what I should pricing and all that kind of thing. So I was like, yeah, sure, you can have it. And then she was like, no, you have put in your effort into, painting and doing this. I would really like to get you something in return. I'm like, maybe $100, like, take it. And she gladly took it. I was like, yay, I made like my first sale, not expecting, that I was to do anything. I didn't know if I was good at that point because, I had a gap of 12 years. And I haven't touched the canvas. I haven't touched paints. So, so that was like a start for me. Right?
Wow. Oh my gosh. I have so many questions. So, how do you feel do you feel like I've actually spoken to many self-taught artists, and some of them have said, I don't really like the title self-taught. Like they felt like it could mean to some people that they weren't necessarily as skilled. And of course, obviously you have beautiful work and everything, but it was like, that was something that other artists mentioned. Like, I don't like telling people that because it's almost like somebody might doubt your ability. Do you have that feeling around that?
No, absolutely not. In fact, I'm very proud of being self-taught. I mean, how many of us would learn a skill or pick up a skill by ourselves? Yeah. So that is that I am super proud of. And initially I was like, I had this, so somewhere down, like, I think a year back or so, I was looking into getting into some galleries and getting some gallery exposure for myself. And I think most of those kind of galleries have that requirement that, they look up to somebody who's more educationally trained as an artist as compared to somebody who's more self-taught. I mean, I kind of learned that a little quicker in the early stage of my art. So my focus really has never been exhibiting at a gallery because I kind of feel that since I started with a direction where I started selling my own art by myself, I was more like, I don't need to pay that commission of like 50 and 40% to these galleries.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Yes. And I was like, you know what? I'd rather make my paintings more affordable and not have them sell it for that high price just to kind of, sell it and be a part of the gallery. Yeah. So I was like, I owned that thing of being a self-taught artist because I thought that was something that I could completely market myself with. And of course, the story that I had, because I feel like that was a very genuine one that, how.
Absolutely.
And so I was like, I just wanted to keep it very raw and as is. So nothing kind of, no filters.
So. Yeah, absolutely. And that's so awesome. And I agree with you because, and I mean, when I've spoken to other artists about being self-taught, because I myself am a graphic designer and I did have, painting and drawing classes in college and things like that. But I didn't specifically go into school for art. So I've never considered myself self-taught because I had gone to art school, which I imagine as a fashion designer you did, right? You have a art degree. So, but it was one of those things where I was like, honestly, even though we've been to school, you still have to teach yourself and learn and grow along the way. Yes. So in a way, we're all really self-taught, I mean, you don't get all the answers in school by any means, And so I've always thought that was so interesting. Like, why do we have to put so much emphasis on people who have degrees? And it just kind of, I don't know, personally, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. Like, I feel like a lot of art galleries are losing out on this beautiful work and these amazing artists because they're kind of putting them through this, well, you need to be just like this in order to be with us. You have to, like, as if having a degree means that you're better, which isn't.
Which isn't.
That's not how that works at all. Because I do know some artists that, they struggled with it all their lives, and then they ended up changing into other careers and things like that. And they had a degree, but it didn't mean that they were instantly really great at it or something. Yeah. I mean, I think it has more to do with a person's experiences, like in life, and what they've been through and how they take that into the expression of their art and that kind of thing. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like a lot of your your personal story comes out into your art?
I feel like I have experimented a lot through my art. Not right now. I am always experimenting with my medium and my thoughts and my imaginations. And I think being a creative person and being an artist, it's really hard to kind of, narrow down your thoughts to kind of, give it a more clearer direction. And that comes through work. I think the more you do it, the more you kind of know that, okay, I like this and I don't like this or whatever. But what you said is absolutely right. And feel like we just need to have a little more time to give our art a more specific direction that we want. And experimenting is definitely something that will help us find that.
Yeah. And I do see that in your work. I mean, you are doing all kinds of neat things, you're doing gold foil, and you've got some like hard, bold lines in your work. Then you got all this color, and it's sort of abstract, but then you've got people's faces or flowers or whatever it is. And it's just like, oh, this is so awesome. Because you can tell that you're working through or experimenting like with the actual materials and then like trying to get your ideas across and everything. I think it's awesome.
So I draw a lot of my inspiration from women that I see around. Yeah. And that is something that is kind of, goes with me like everywhere. I am probably talking to you today, and something or maybe a part of our conversation would be like, we'll keep lingering on my mind, and I'll be like, okay, maybe I should experiment with that conversation into our art. And something about you probably just gets inspired, and I get inspired by that would come in form of art. And then, just about everything, like how strong we are as women, how we do different things, how we feel, our aspirations, what we want to do in life, and how we look at different things and approach life in general. So that is something that I kind of, like to show through my art. And of course, I love a lot of mixed media, like you say, and I do use a lot of different things. I use oil paint, acrylic, mother of pearl, gold foil, and all these kind of gold leafing is something that I absolutely love. That's the most favorite part of my process. So yes,
I agree with that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And then I when I started, I had the first painting, like I was telling you that I did, was an oil painting, because even when as a kid I painted with oils. So experimenting came to me with my medium just in different stages as I progressed with my art. And then I kind of, gave it a more direction where I thought like, okay, I think I enjoyed this process more. So I kind of, pushed my art through that. So
yeah. And you kind of feel like like you're finding your footing, or you're finding what is, I don't know. I mean, I've been through that myself, where I felt very strongly about a specific medium, and then that medium just kind of kept going with me. And I feel like it tends to be the thing that you really enjoyed when you were young.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that? Like you have this connection with oils where you're, it's like your medium. It speaks to you in a different way than like other things do.
Yeah. So it's funny how after I started painting back, I was actually resisting to use acrylic paints because I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. So I just didn't buy any acrylic paints for like the longest time. And then I was like, you know what, let me start with a couple of smaller paintings and see how I like it. So then initially, the way acrylic paintings dry faster and all that, so I didn't really like that because I was, a person who would take time to paint, and being an oil painter is like a really slow process, right? Acrylic was like on the other side, come on, get going. So
like, you got to slow down, acrylic.
So that kind of, threw me like, what do I do with this? Like, but I did, as time passed, I did kind of, learned how to deal with the acrylic paint. And then I kind of combine my acrylic painting for the base of my painting, and then go over the painting with oil. So
that's interesting. Now, why do you do it that way, if you don't mind me asking?
I just feel like acrylic colors have like a real nice vibrancy to it. They're beautiful, they're vibrant. And the way the colors in acrylic paints are very different than the oil color, the texture of the oil color and how they feel. So mostly when I do my color blocking or undercoating of a painting, that's what I use acrylic paints for. And then I go over with oil paint over them, just because I love how the effect of that combination comes out. And the oil colors are not that, they do get a nice layer, and the like vibrancy seeps through those oil paints, because I don't use like a really thick layer of oil paints or anything. Just go with, I use the glazing medium to kind of, give it a little more transparency. So
yeah. That's interesting. I didn't know that people did that. That's awesome. Because I mean, I'm actually the opposite in that I'm more familiar with acrylics, and I have done oil painting before, so I know how slow it is and everything. But it's interesting, like how you feel. That's really an interesting process. I think that's a great idea, because I could see how acrylics are more like a synthetic kind of medium. And so the colors are brighter. Do you use a specific brand of acrylics and oils?
So for me, I love Liquitex. Liquitex in acrylic colors. I love that. I do use flow mediums of golden. Those are my favorite ones. As far as oil colors go, I absolutely love Charvin and Winsor & Newton. So those two are absolutely top favorite brands. So I do use that. And I do use a lot of other mediums. Like I use a slow drying medium for acrylics. And then for oils, I use Galkite, which is like a faster drying medium. Kind of, combine that to make sure that acrylic would dry like in, a couple of hours or something like that.
Yeah.
Oil would take usually if you just paint with a normal oil paint, it could take like anywhere from 2 to 4 months for a painting to actually dry, depending on how coats of oil paint you're doing and what's the size. But with
That's
faster medium kind of, helps me.
You know what that tells me? That tells me that you've done a lot of experimenting with this and you have found your happy medium where you're like literally a happy medium where you're like making one slower and the other one faster. And it's like meeting in the middle.
Middle, yes, absolutely. And then somewhere my drying time is more like, okay, it should be okay in like about a month and a half. And that would be great. So it kind of dries pretty faster.
Oh, so like you, when you're working on these paintings and things, do you find yourself like stepping away from a piece and then coming back to it later and changing things and kind of working on it like that? Or do you kind of do it all in one session, or how do you do that?
To be really honest, I work on 4 different paintings at a time.
Oh, nice. Okay. That's cool.
So, and that's mostly to do with the drying time as well, because I'm kind of, I'm sketching on one canvas and then I'm putting base on the other. And I am kind of, doing undertones for the third one, and the fourth one is it drying or something like that. Because when you kind of, do the mixed media form with the oil, you literally have to wait for so many parts of the painting to dry before you could, put the gold leaf on it. And then before you kind of add iridescent glitter to it or anything of that sort, So the drying time of that in between drying times is like, at least you have to give it like 3-4 days to dry, and then you can go and add the other mediums on it. So with that being said, I would be just like over there waiting and sitting that, okay, the next 3 days I'm not doing anything. So I might as well use that time and I work on another painting. And it kind of it's like that.
Yeah. So like when you're doing, you're doing several paintings at a time, and you're like always staying busy with it, right? And then are you working in a series when you're doing that, or they influence each other kind of?
Yes, they do influence each other. I work with a series. So right now I am actually working on a series that is more of and I honestly haven't really thought a name for my series, which I really, really need to do. But I'm working on more of a series, which is a combination of wildlife and women. So, and that is actually for my upcoming exhibit with a friend of mine, with another artist friend of mine here in Charlotte. It's called Open Your Eyes, and that's on April 2nd.
Oh, well, that's really cool. So that's like I guess you guys, what, if you don't mind me asking, what kind of art does the other artist do?
So she is more of a floral artist. And
okay.
Yeah, so she does a lot of, she's inspired by the floral and fauna of Florida. She comes from Florida.
Okay.
She's from So, but she has been living in Charlotte for the last, I think, 12 or 15 years now. So she's mostly inspired by that. And then, of course, the native floral and fauna of
okay.
here. So, and her pieces are very abstract and they're like really beautiful. So, and her paintings and my paintings kind of complement each other.
That's what I would imagine. Yeah. And that's why I asked, like, I don't want to like get off onto another artist or anything like that, but I'm like, okay, come back over here, Pam, let's get on that. But, yeah, that makes sense. And I think it's interesting. Like, so this show, is this at a gallery?
Yes, it is at it's a McDowell's Art Center and Gallery in downtown of Matthews. Matthews is under a suburb of Charlotte. So that's where we're having it.
Okay.
And pretty exciting time for us.
That's going to be fun. Did you guys plan this on your own, or is this something that the gallery asked for you to do, or like, did you know each other already? How did you come about doing it?
So yes, this was actually last year, back in November and December. I was the featured artist at the Town Hall of Matthews.
Oh, okay.
So they had kind of, my paintings on two of their walls in town halls, and it's more like a visitor center, and they have like a beautiful gallery set up right there. So I was introduced to their actual gallery they had in the downtown itself by the art director. And she was like, it would be nice if you want to kind of, have your exhibit over here. So I was like, yeah, I would be really interested in looking into what my options are. Mm-hmm. So we kind of went together and checked out the gallery, and I absolutely loved it. And she said that, well, if you want to have your solo exhibit, you could go ahead and have that over here, and we'll be honored to host you. And I was like, the gallery is huge. It's a gallery. So I was like, I think I need somebody who would be, complementing my work, and somebody actually, that driven to kind of bring art. So, and Michelle, I had actually met Michelle again in the beginning of 2021. We had done another exhibit together. We were in a show together. We kind of, got talking to each other and instantly clicked. And I was like, I love the way she paints and the way she talks. So she and her husband are originally from like France. Her family comes from France. So she's a French artist, and she's a pretty good one. So I was like, what could be better? So I just kind of called her over for lunch, and then like, do you think that you want to do this together? So she's like, yeah, why not? And she's like really excited, and we're like started working on this whole thing. So we've been working for the past 6 months now. So
wow. Yeah. Okay. So that's like all of this kind of came about from your connections through other exhibits and things that you've been doing. And then, you're inviting artists that and you're making connections. Sorry, that's just so interesting to me, I think, because, a lot of the one of the reasons that I wanted to have this podcast was because I wanted other artists to hear stories, to hear someone else's journey. And then for you to say that, you made some of these connections, you made friends at these, exhibits, and then you're bringing along her, and she's, going to join you and do this exhibit together. That's so exciting and so fun. And it seems accessible, like it's not like something where you had to jump through these hoops in order to be accepted by this, uppity sort of gallery. And, you had to do anything like that. It was more like your personal connections have ended up being, how you got to these things. So that's so exciting.
Yeah, this has been great, actually. And we are so looking forward to it. But yes, like you said, making connections is really, really important as far as artists and self-taught artists and navigating in the art world goes, because a lot of we as creative, we are more like, introverts, and I am definitely one, though I don't come out as an introvert. But,
I'm the same way. So,
but we're shy. We shy away from doing the business part of it. Mm-hmm. We're more like we'll paint and we'll kind of make beautiful, pretty things, and then even we kind of slack off and don't really focus on the business part of it. And I tell you that even art school does not teach how to do that business.
So. Which that, okay,
art school should totally teach that. Like, that's the one thing they should be teaching, you know, because you've got to, like, even, you know, like I was saying before, even as you go out on your own as an artist, you've got to figure out what you want to make and what you want to paint and how you want to paint and stuff like that. So I feel like they focus so much on that part. Why don't they add the business part of it to the, I mean, that just makes sense. How helpful would that be? Oh my God.
Absolutely helpful. But otherwise, it's more like, you know, scratching surfaces and trying to figure it out yourself. It's hard. It's tough.
Yeah. And that's one of those things that I think, you know, especially a lot of younger artists are like, I don't even know where to start, you know, like, who do I even talk to about something like that, you know? So that's really interesting that you've gone through that process and you know, you've met these people along the way, and those have turned into other things. And then I'm sure that these shows will turn into more things, and it'll be something that just carries on and kind of, you know, like a snowball down the hill. It'll just get bigger and bigger. So that's awesome. So what would you say has been one of the hardest things as being an artist and selling your work and that kind of thing?
I don't really think that anything has been hard. As far as I go, I am a little blessed on that part. But I do think that there are a little bit of difficulties navigating yourself in the world of art. When I initially started, I had no clue. Like I said, being completely self-taught, I was actually experimenting, finding my own style, getting my own vision, and kind of, you know, giving a meaning to my art, all of that. So I was already trying to figure that out. And I did not know how to kind of, you know, navigate in this situation and get my work in front of people. But I think the best start would be to getting into a community of artists that are like-minded. Involving yourself with the community, working through these small shows and exhibits that are there around, and part of artist groups, and talking about what you do and what you want to do and what's your vision and what are your goals, basically. And there are people on the way that you'll find help through. But I think just sitting back and painting and not doing anything about it, definitely not going to take you anywhere. So how I started was actually just going through the first, when we moved here. So as I was painting for about like a year, and then we moved here to Charlotte. That was the first, I kind of, you know, looked through the community galleries and the artist groups that Charlotte had, and I kind of took memberships of that. I signed up to kind of be a part of those artist communities and community galleries, and started showing up at those events and talking to people, just kind of, you know, making sure that I am one voice amongst them, because just being back in studio is not going to help you get out, do anything. So that's how I started. And with trying to kind of, you know, work with their shows and all these small community events where there are small pop-ups and there are little shows that they host with, you know, whatever, 20 artists and 25 artists. So I kind of started participating in all of that.
Yeah.
And that's how actually people got to know me, and my work kind of grew, and painting started selling, and more business started coming through. So.
Oh, that's so awesome. And I think that, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think so much of the time artists kind of go away in their little studio space or whatever, and they're kind of shut off from the rest of the world, and they're in their creative mode, doing their thing. And then we forget, to actually go out into the community and make connections with other artists and that kind of thing, which is really fun and easy to do, I think. So it's like us talking on this podcast, we're just talking about art stuff. So having that connection and that leading to joining associations and guilds and things like that, and actually participating in a show here and there. And then people will associate your name with your artwork and that kind of thing. How do you feel about social media as far as that being an influence on making sales and connecting with others?
So social media is definitely a great way of reaching out to people and having an audience. As far as the sales, I would say who you have, number of your followers, or who you have following you, that really does not determine your sales.
Yeah.
Sales is a totally different thing from what social media is. Social media is there to kind of, show yourself, your skills, what you're doing, kind of making people aware that you're there.
Yeah.
And then and I have noticed this with my own social media, that a lot of people that I follow, or a lot of people who follow me, are actually other artists and other creatives who are, interested in doing this. So your ideal kind of a buyer is not really sitting there out on social media to kind of, come to you and say, hey, I want to buy that painting, or I want to buy that piece of, this beautiful piece that you created. So it's not really, for me, it's like a 60-40 thing. Most of my sales have come in from the connections that I've built, the way they have gotten out, the way my collectors and my buyers list has increased. So, and that's all through connections. Yeah. And it's all great to start small. And I would say to really, truly don't focus on how many followers you would have or how many people are kind of looking at your things, because people might be looking at you for a lot of different reasons. They could be buying inspiration from you, which is great. They could be just, they just love your art, so they just want to keep seeing it. Or they just love you. They just like to see you. That's why they are over there. Yeah. So it could be many different reasons. Now, I do have some of my buyers and collectors also supporting me on social media. But I would say that has also come through a lot of these meaningful connections that I have made through the community. So, and I mean, they did not come to me directly through social media. Yeah. They came first through my connections. And when I participated in these events, I kind of, put myself out over there. That's when these connections were made. So I can't emphasize that how important it is to be there in the community to get business, but at the same time, validating that with your social media, with your presence, and kind of, spreading the knowledge that you have. So it's a 60-40 thing, that 60% you have to actually really be there, a part of, community and starting small out over there. And 40% is your social media, where you kind of get a better exposure to a bigger audience. I mean, social media is definitely important, but that's important as a marketing point of view, not as a sales. And those are two different things, I would say.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because, and I think that is so fascinating, the way that you put that, because I think a lot of artists, especially now, we focus so much on the social media part of it and like being online, and we're not connecting with other people in our communities. Because like I've seen on your Instagram, I saw that you're you've been doing some murals as well, right? Is that around the area?
That is around in North Carolina area. Yes.
Yeah.
So I have completed last year, I did 8 murals across the city.
Wow.
So and all of them were in the city's prime locations. Really huge wall. The biggest that I actually have painted is 35 feet long. Wow. And 35 feet long and 20 feet tall. So that's the largest wall that I painted last year. And I have 4 other murals that I'm painting this year that have been pipelined, and that starts from April.
Wow.
So
oh my gosh. That is huge. Like literally, that is huge. I don't know. Yeah. Like, that to me, that takes so much energy and like, like having to go out there and have you like, how did you get into doing the murals around the area? Is it more connections?
It is more connections. Yeah. Let me start. I'm going to be very quick on this one. So I started when I took the membership of some of the community nonprofits over here around this Charlotte area. When I moved to Charlotte, I specifically had done my first exhibit in Charlotte for Southend Arts. And that was my first ever gallery exhibit of my life. And I had never exhibited before that in a gallery space or pop-ups, yes, but not a gallery space. And I was thrilled. It was a 2-day show. I sold my paintings. I went home empty-handed with money in my pocket, with a check in my pocket. I was over the moon that, oh my gosh, this is my first show. My paintings have sold. And I was so excited, and then I was I started kind of, doing more of those events that were there and trying to getting more involved with the community.
Yeah.
And I such event that was my first break, I would say. There was this lady who came up to me and she really loved the style of my art. And she said, hey, you know what? I want you to paint a mural for my new house in my bedroom. I'm like, okay, all right. So we kind of up and we discussed the color of the walls and what she wanted. And I kind of did a mock-up of all that. And she loved it. And then we went with that. So that was my first mural that I did. Then it was followed up by another art gallery who wanted another mural. So she kind of she knew that those people, so she referred me to the owner of that art gallery. And I kind of went and I met her over there. And then she is like, you know what? I want you to paint a mural for me as well. I'm like, okay. So I painted 1 mural for her. Then she's like, I have 3 more projects for you. Do you think you have time to do that? I'm like, of course I have time to do that. So I went ahead and did 3 more smaller murals for her as well. Yeah, so that happened. And then I was at one of the local, pop-ups that, festivals that these guys do in downtown. And I was kind of live painting over there. They had booked me for a session for live painting. There's live painting. And there's this guy who came up to me and said, I really like what you do, because I had some of my paintings displayed up there.
Yeah.
So do you do murals? I said, yeah, I do murals. So I showed him, I pulled up my phone and I kind of went through all the pictures of murals that I had done. He's like, okay, I have a restaurant and I want you to kind of come and paint murals for me. I'm like, okay, fine. So then he called me for 1 mural, but ended up giving me 3 other murals.
Oh, goodness.
So,
holy cow, that's a lot of murals.
Yeah. So I was literally working on those murals for 2.5 months.
Oh my
goodness. It was amazing. So that's how it happened. And yeah, I mean, it's been a really fun journey as an artist and all these things.
Wow. To me, that's like the ideal story. And it's very word of mouth, where people are just recommending you and recommending you and recommending you because they like what you've done. And then they just pass your name on to others. That is so amazing. Oh my God.
that's really truly the best kind of publicity that you could get.
Yeah.
Recommendations and people referring you to other people. That's the best way to get started. But it happens when it's a give and take kind of a situation. You have to be involved with the community to kind of, for the community to support you and give it back. I believe in that. And I'm also a part of a nonprofit. The first exhibit that sold all of my paintings, Southend Arts, that was my first gallery exhibit. I'm a vice president of Southend Arts now. I was voted this year as a vice president for the organization. So, yeah. So,
oh my goodness, that's like a whole different, how did you get involved with that?
So I just started doing these shows with Southend Arts, and the founder thought that my work was really interesting, and my involvement with the shows and the knowledge of the business aspect of it that I had, because I have a degree in fashion business management as well. So that kind of, helped me a little.
Yeah.
And kind of promoting my art through people. So she really loved how I did things. And then she was like, do you want to be on board of directors? I'm like, yeah, sure, I can try. I was first voted the board of director. And then after 4 months, they were like, we are just running an election to see, to kind of, vote for a new president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary, and all that kind of stuff. I was like, okay. She said, I want to recommend your name. Like, fine, do that. I did not know that. I was like, who's going to do that? Who's going to vote for me?
Oh, that's so wonderful.
But that happened.
Gosh. That's like full circle. Oh, that's amazing. So who would you say is your favorite artist?
Really, truly, I don't have a real favorite artist, or I like different works of different people. But if I have to name one, and this is just because I have seen that work in person and how magnificent it is. Last year we had Van Gogh exhibit here in Charlotte, and it was like luminous. It was lighted and it was beautiful. And I just love the flow of his work. And I think he would be my favorite artist if I had to say, just because I had seen it so much, and life size or even larger than life size. So it was cool. So that I'm still kind of, in that zone, how I had seen that. And I went there twice, actually. One wasn't enough.
Wow. That is awesome. That's a great, a lot of people love Van Gogh. Van Gogh is awesome. I mean, I think the reason why his work is, everywhere and they're having these shows is because it's so amazing. So, and I can see that influence in your work. I don't know if you see it, but I do. I think in the way that you're painting and everything. So that's really cool. Do you have any art books that are your favorite?
I'm not a big fan of reading books, but I would tell you, I do read. I have read a couple of them, but I would recommend a few books that would be more towards business geared on how to kind of, work yourself in the art field, because I don't really read books on how to paint. I read books on how to sell.
Yeah. That's a good point. That is seriously a good point.
So I would say it's by Katrina Popova. She is from Art Queens. If you kind of have seen her over Instagram. Yeah. So it's their book that I really like. And I think that's I kind of forget the name. I don't really remember the name, but I had read it the year that I started in 2019. But that's one. If I remember it, I'm going to send that over to you. Right. I have that with me.
But I will follow Art Queen, so I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So I love that one. There's another book by Geeta Joshi that I really like. She is another art curator and kind of, more sort of a person who guides people, just like, Ekaterina. And she, I think her book is more, I haven't completed that one yet because I kind of read in between. Sure. Whenever I have a little bit of time between my full-time job and painting, all that going on. So I started reading that about 3 months back, but I haven't really finished that one yet. But I think that one is something that I really love. And then another one I would say is Steal Like an Artist. That is the 3 books that I would definitely say. But besides, I would say my favorite book is not an art book, but that would helps it helps somebody who's looking for motivation, who's looking for somebody who wants to kind of, get from point A to point B and get started on their journey and make improvement in no matter what career they're in. Mm-hmm. And that it was a great book just for creatives and artists as well. It's from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be by Jack Canfield.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write down all these things.
Yeah. That book is really, really awesome. Now that book has stuck with me for the last 10 or 12 years. Wow. And every time I feel like I'm losing my track or I don't know what to do, I kind of flip those pages and read through that book. That's my most favorite book.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I put on the questions for all the artists that I've interviewed, what art book do you like? And it's a lot of people, they're like, oh, I don't really have anything, or they'll have an art book that is beautiful that they like to look at, or biographies of artists. This is the first time we've gotten business books or motivational books, and I'm all about it. That is awesome. That is fantastic. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I kind of don't remember the name of that book but I will definitely send you the link.
Yes. Send these things to me because I'll even add these links underneath where I'll have this podcast on my website too. So I can be like, Pam recommends, these books. So that's awesome. I'm so excited. I'm like wanting to go shopping now. So what is our last question or I guess conversation point is, what is one thing that you would tell other artists that are getting started, or maybe they have a full-time career and they're interested in starting again? What is your advice there?
So my advice is always going to be from the perspective of selling art. And it would be that make beautiful art, but know how to kind of, build a story around it and go out completely full-fledged and sell that story. And kind of, navigate yourself through your local communities, get yourself into there, and don't shy away from meeting new people and talking about your art and telling your story. And that's what will get you through. If your goal is to make money from your art, then this is something that you have to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. That is so good.
And that's like a totally, completely unfiltered advice that I have followed. Is I used to be extremely shy, and I used to be very underconfident with my art, that how am I going to kind of, get this out there? I didn't know that. And once I kind of, dived into it, it just started, doors started opening. So that happened.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what a journey. Well, thank you so much, Pam, for talking to me. This has been an amazing interview, and you have shared so much wonderful advice. I know that this is going to be a really, really inspiring podcast for people to listen to. I'm inspired.
Oh, thank you. I so appreciate this, April, your time and talking to me, and we get to have this artist talk. It's wonderful.
Thank you for listening to Art Talk with April. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe.